Right now, there isn't a single country in the world that isn't in debt. America is $38 trillion. Japan is $9 trillion. The European Union is $14 trillion. Even Saudi Arabia, which we call oil-rich, is in debt. Even Germany, the world leader in exports, is in debt. Even China is in debt. And now I need to ask you a very simple but thought-provoking question. If everyone is in debt, who is the creditor? Wait, don't answer yet. Because the answer to this question will demolish much of what you've learned about money and power. Welcome to the Financial History Channel, my friends. Today, I'm going to tell you the biggest secret of the modern world. Global debt has exceeded $315 trillion. That means roughly 3 times all the goods and services in the world has been borrowed from one place to another. This number is so large that the human mind can't truly grasp it. Honestly, I can't grasp it either. But we have to, my friends, because this system directly affects your life every single day. Your salary, your mortgage, your retirement savings, the prices of the products you buy. In short, everything. The year is 1694. England is at war with France and is literally on the verge of bankruptcy. Do you know what the king did? He knocked on the doors of merchants and said, "Give me money. I'll pay you back whenever you want." The merchants said, "Fine, but we need a guarantee." And that guarantee completely changed history. The state pledged regular interest payments to be funded by future taxes. In exchange, the merchants handed over the money. To manage this arrangement, the Bank of England was established. For the first time, a state could spend money it didn't have. This was a revolution, truly. Before, empires conquered territory to find gold. Now they were issuing bonds to collect interest. The balance sheet had replaced the battlefield. France copied this system. The Netherlands refined it. The newly founded United States financed its war of independence and its subsequent westward expansion through this system. And today, 300 years later, the same system is still running. The numbers have just gotten a little bigger. Let's start with the US, because America's debt isn't just America's problem. It's yours, mine, and the world's. $38 trillion. Half of this is publicly held debt, meaning debt owed to investors outside the government's own entities. Between 65 and 70% of these investors are American institutions, banks, pension funds, insurance companies, investment funds, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining third, around $9 trillion, is in foreign hands. The largest portion of that is in Japan, at roughly $1 trillion. Then comes China, at around $800 billion. So the sentence, "the US owes money to China," is correct, but that's only 2% of the total debt. The overwhelming majority of America's debt is debt owed to America itself. The Treasury issues bonds, American banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve buys them back and creates new dollars in the process. Americans pay taxes, those taxes pay the bond interest, and that interest flows into Americans' retirement accounts. A cycle, a closed cycle. But this cycle didn't stay exclusive to America. Japan holds US Treasury bonds. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to Africa and Asia through the World Bank. Developing countries invest their foreign currency reserves into bonds in Western countries. Everyone owes everyone. Everyone holds everyone else's promissory note. Imagine a poker table. Everyone at the table has borrowed chips from the player next to them. And the only condition for the game to continue is this: no one stands up. But please wait. The real story hasn't started yet. The real owners of this system are neither governments nor citizens. The real owners are the markets. Behind every government bond lies a massive pile of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks managing tens of trillions of dollars. They decide which country gets to borrow cheaply and which one will struggle to pay high interest rates. What happens when their confidence is shaken? We've seen it happen before our very eyes. Greece, in the year 2010, the debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked. Interest rates spiked. The EU and IMF came to the rescue. But this rescue operation came at a price: austerity, tax hikes, mass layoffs. An entire Greek generation still feels a pang in their heart when they hear the words bailout package. In Argentina, successive defaults turned debt into a national trauma. In Sri Lanka, when the government couldn't find the foreign currency to service its external debt, the country witnessed fuel queues, street protests, and the president fleeing the country. When the system collapses, the creditors suddenly show themselves: the IMF, credit rating agencies, and nameless fund managers. These entities can grab entire nations by the throat. Democracy decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. And now I'm going to tell you something that is never explained this directly anywhere else. Every dollar in circulation is part of a debt. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys a government bond, it creates new money in return. The liability on one balance sheet becomes the assets on another. In fact, there is an invisible promissory note written on the banknote in your wallet. Debt itself has become money. And this system has stayed afloat for decades on one single thing: trust. Investors buy bonds even knowing that governments will never repay the principal. Why? Because at least the interest will be paid, and that interest will be covered by the next bond issuance. And to close that bond, a new one will be issued. Forever. Now let's talk about something that sounds startling but is actually widely known. No major government actually plans to pay off its debt. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is policy itself. When you, I, and others take out a loan, we have to pay back the principal. But governments operate debt like a subscription service. They issue new bonds to close the old ones. Economists call this refinancing. The principal is never paid, only the interest is paid, and the debt is passed on to the next generation. Japan is the most striking example of this. It has been living with a debt burden exceeding 250% of GDP for decades, and yet the country's bond yields are near zero. Far from panicking, investors line up to lend to Japan. Why? Because they're not waiting for repayment. They're waiting for the deal to be renewed. A US Treasury bond is not seen as a liability. It's seen as an asset, the foundation of global markets. Pension funds hold it. Banks use it as collateral. Central banks treat it like money. And now let's do a thought experiment that will stretch your mind a little. Let's say the US paid off all its debt, zeroed it out, came out clean. What happens? Banks all around the world would lose their most reliable asset. The dollar supply would shrink dramatically. Deflation would begin. The financial system would go into crisis. Paying off the debt means destroying the very machine that runs the economy. That's why, instead of paying off debt, governments do the exact opposite. They issue more debt. rhythmically, continuously. Debt has become the heartbeat of capitalism. When it stops, the system dies. Now you might say, this system is great then, everyone wins. But wait, the sentence, we owe our debt to ourselves, is only half true. Interest payments don't flow equally through society. They flow upward from the ordinary tax-paying citizen to the large institution holding the bonds. So debt isn't just a transfer between countries, it's a transfer between classes. This is why global inequality and global debt grow hand in hand. Those who hold the debt win the system. Those who merely pay it are servicing the system. Are creditors bad? No. Are debtors victims? No. Both are cogs in the same machine. But when the machine wears out, when new borrowing can no longer keep up with the old promises, that innocent question becomes relevant once again. Who is the creditor? There is no single villain at the top of this global pyramid. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF, all of them, and us. The modern financial system has turned debt itself into money. Governments produce it, banks multiply it, investors buy and sell it. Citizens live and breathe inside this system. The line between debtor and creditor has become so blurred that we can no longer tell the two apart. Debt used to be the symbol of bondage. Today, it is the symbol of balance. But this balance can shift at any moment, and the day trust cracks, the illusion ends. That day, we will wake up to what debt really is, a promise that cannot be kept forever. So what do you think about this topic? Can this system go on forever, or will there inevitably be a day of reckoning? Let's meet in the comments. If your perspective changed today, subscribe. History never runs out of answers, and I'll keep showing you which window to look through.